history of the Chicago Bears quarterbacks. You just can't let that get out the window, you know.
Carbonara, and, gosh, it was.
Eggs in it, bacon.
Yeah. Eggs and Parmesan cheese.
Gary's
and
the
other
one
stuff.
I heard from.
Brady had to go store because of crappy too.
Here's the big part.
It was good.
It's Amy.
I don't think so, but Brady next year, he might have taken 8, I don't know, we ordered in pizza, but Brady and I finished it, it was good. Like, sweet. So. See, and basically, Peyton just dumped stuff in. We measured out for him, and he just makes a mess of our kitchen.
Hey, Scott.
I was surprised how young he was. He's way better than I thought. But we'll take it.
Yes.
Scott? Assuming when he switches off the thing.
Yeah.
Awfully festive today, Mrs. Herman.
What's up?
Awfully festive with your.
Oh, yeah. Gotta go all out. Want me to light up?
7 o'clock, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If you could stand for the pledge of allegiance if you're able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jackie, you have the roll.
I've got everybody listed.
Okay. First item here, let's adopt the agenda. The only other changes I'm aware of are the additional list of bills that came from Jackie this afternoon. Is there anything else?
I think Mr. Harmon put on a handout of parent-teacher conferences, so he'll review that during reports.
Under reports, okay. So with that in mind, I'm entertaining a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as with modifications as noted.
Second.
We have a motion and second to adopt the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Next 3 items, minutes of past meetings, financial report, and summary list of bills plus additional bills. We'll look at those all together. I had a brief conversation with Jackie and Mr. Jorth about the student construction fund. Jackie, you want to hit that at a real high level?
Real high level is that the student construction fund will remain running at a negative until the house is completed and the sale is finalized with Mr. Ackerman. There's a down payment that was placed when he initially purchased the home back in the spring. That has been utilized, as well as a $30,000 startup from the general fund, from the casino funds from some time ago. Those things, not the payment from Mr. Ackerman, obviously, but the startup of $30,000 will need to be repaid when that final payment is received. Otherwise, it will run at a negative for the remainder of the year. The cash portion of it is being covered by the general fund, FFA fund, the split fund, and all the other commingled accounts in the actual deposit account. But otherwise, the fund itself will run at a negative.
Much like an activity account might run negative and make sure it balances at the fiscal year end.
Any other questions on those items? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve those 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the minutes of the past meetings, financial report, summary list of bills plus additional bills. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried.
I also included a list of student, staff, and community recognition for everybody. You can see, just kind of recapping all the football postseason awards. And then also Hayden Hymanson was voted to the all-district Class 2A Northwest District team. On the backside, I know Carrie's gonna join us here a little bit after the JV girls basketball game's complete, but wanted to thank Carrie and her family. They've made some lanyards for our face masks that they donated to the school, and had multiple elementary staff members want me to kind of recognize Carrie and the Davis family for those contributions. And kind of along that same note, I just want to recognize all teachers, paraeducators, support staff members for their flexibility and resilience during the first semester. You know, a lot of ebb and flow with COVID, a lot of people covering for one another, whether it's substituting, whether it's, you know, covering a class during your prep period, or, you know, picking up a study hall, just kind of supervise kids. So I just really want to thank the staff for their flexibility and their willingness to kind of do whatever has been asked of them this semester. And hopefully, now that the vaccine is starting to roll out, you know, we can get back to some semblance of normalcy here in the near future. So wanted to recognize teachers and support staff members for all of their work this first semester. And then finally, I listed all the individuals and businesses that contributed to help defray costs associated with our 2 trips to Cedar Falls in the semifinals and the finals. And then in addition to the Booster Club and the Quarterback Club, put all those different entities together, and we raised about $10,000 in 5 days. So that was much appreciated, and we reached out to them and thanked them, but I think it's important for us to have their names and businesses recognized at this time too. So, Mr. Harmon, Mr. Engelman, anybody else that you guys would like to lift up?
You touched on a little bit with teachers and support staff. Just also would like to thank our substitutes. You know, they get called frequently, it seems, and sometimes early in the morning, sometimes late at night, and whether they can come in or not, they're very cordial with Mr. Harmon and I. They always want to come in and help the district in any capacity. So whether it's paraprofessional work or teaching work, they're willing to come in. Thankfully, we do have a deep pool to draw from, and we thank those people for wanting to come in during such difficult times.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that and just say, you know, those substitutes, not only on a normal basis, we call them for maybe 1 day or 2 in a row, but now we're calling them for 5 or even more, that they step in and do their best to fill that gap, which is a huge challenge. So it's a great group of people, and to see them want to give up their time when they wouldn't have to is very appreciated.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Item 4, communications, public participation on non-agenda items. Is anyone here to speak tonight? Signed up? Don't everybody stand up at once? Okay, moving on. Any correspondence?
Nothing to add.
Reports. Item A, principal reports. Mr. Harmon, start with you.
It's a single sheet, sorry, it doesn't have a title on it. I just wanted to summarize what we talked about last month, whether it was right after conferences, we had that board report, so we couldn't get all the papers in quite in on time, but it just goes through class by class, preschool through 6th grade. As you see, very high attendance rates, which is always appreciated. What that tells me and tells the district is that our online sign-up process does work. It is simple to figure out, or we schedule with those families that it is a little more difficult. They don't have access on a computer to do that. The virtual option, you can see kind of ebbs and flows each class, just a few in every one. you know, with our sixth grade being the highest by far, but still, I think it was a great option to offer families that they could do that if they felt more comfortable. Our overall percentage for that was 90%, we had 26 families taking virtual, so a great round of conferences. Even those families that were not scheduled, teachers are reaching out to them or sending home the information, making sure they got it. We did not include that in this report because it wasn't done, I mean, they reached out on Wednesdays, PDs if there was time, or on their own time, just to make sure those families knew what was going on. So, a great report. I like to see this high numbers that people are in our building, but also finding out about how the kids are doing so far through the school year, so. All right. That's all I have.
The 7th and 8th grade part, we're just shy of 100%. Those that weren't able to attend with us here, we were able to get in contact with via phone calls or email correspondence. High school, I don't have an exact measurement for you there. It was much lower than that percentage, but that was a new system we were putting in place with the online sign up, giving people the option to do virtual or come in. And I think, I know I have some high school staff here, but the biggest challenge we came across was many people are not yet familiar with our high school building because they've never had to go anywhere else but the gymnasium or the auditorium. So it was actually a good thing, I think, for those that attended. I know Scott, I visited with him a little bit, but it was nice to get into the classrooms and see what, you know, our students are up against day in and day out, see some of the equipment pieces that we're fortunate to have, and have those conversations in the teacher's environment as opposed to the gymnasium. So something will likely continue, at least for this next round, but hopefully we can we did put a map out the second night around, but probably send that out prior to the conferences so people know where to go and maybe can strategically plan their conferences so they're not going from one end of the building to the next, back and forth.
Yeah, I should add that my conference schedule is what we use for that, does have the flexibility to do the individual things for both buildings, so it's a very, very advantageous program that, I'm sure glad that Mr. George referred us to, that we're using, and very minimal expense with that, because it sure saves a lot of time for the district, so.
As part of the conferences process, is there any steps that are taken to reach out to those families that are 100% online? Or is that more of a continual thing?
That's a weekly thing.
Yeah, continuous.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the reports? Thank you.
In the packet, I had a memo in regards to future work sessions. I just kind of want to get everybody's feedback. Talking to Dave and Andy, we discussed trying to put out a kind of a yearly calendar when it comes to work sessions going forward, and really focusing those items that are bulleted at the top of that memo being a separate night, basically 6 work sessions a year that don't just tack on to the regular board meeting. And so whether they are the 4th Monday of the month, or maybe it's a Wednesday night, depending upon the activities that are going on during that particular time of the school year, where the board can get together and have a conversation really around the district goals, okay? And so I just put these down as kind of my recommendations. I'm not necessarily married to that, but I tried to kind of look down and think strategically about when that might be the best time for us to have those conversations. And so, you know, looking forward, kind of to kick off that work session, you know, would be looking at some financial projections, the impact on student programming and staffing based upon whenever state supplemental aid is set by the legislature. You know, technically, they're supposed to do it within the first 30 days of the session. That hasn't happened in the last few years. So that's why I kind of put January or February, just kind of depending upon when that's determined, and then when we're able to kind of start to actually put some numbers down. And we can kind of talk through that ramification for the rest of the budget. And then March and April, really that's around the time that we would begin doing the ISASP testing. And so we would have we'd have the fall and the winter FAST data from K through 5 that we could review. We could talk about ACT data, and then kind of review what last year's ISASP data was and some of the goals that we've set for kids going forward. And then just kind of have some conversations around, you know, our local measures for achievement, you know, whether it's our semester grades or formative and summative assessment data and questions that the board might have around that. You know, the third work session around family and community engagement, I know we begun those conversations, you know, kind of during the course of last school year, especially when we're looking at my evaluation and the district goals and where we could do some more when it comes to engaging families, reaching out and creating some partnerships within the community. And so whether we, you know, do a joint meeting maybe with SIAC, that might be an opportunity, or the school board and the city doing something jointly, or whatever the board might want to do around that time of the year. And then June and July, as we kind of kick off the new school year, revisiting the mission, vision, and goals of the district, and just kind of setting our foundational elements right at the beginning of that new school year. And then August and September, you know, kind of as those summer projects have concluded, might be a good time for us to sit down each year, have a conversation about, okay, so planning for the following summer, what projects need to get finished, what projects do we want to start adding to our long-term goals, and doing some more board level conversations around facilities in the fall. And then October, November, revisiting student achievement, maybe professional learning for staff, and having those conversations again right after school year started, bringing some teachers in or teacher leaders in to have the conversation about student achievement and professional learning and things like that. So that's kind of my recommendation. Again, not necessarily married to those particular days or for it to have to be the fourth Monday of the month, but something separate from the regular meeting so that we can just kind of focus in on that one goal area for the district. Any ideas or any feedback that you guys had or questions that you might have?
I think the intent of having a separate meeting was really not to try to inconvenience everybody, because we certainly don't want to do that, and like Brent mentioned, try and be flexible. Like, I know Carrie has some standing appointments on the fourth Monday, that's just not gonna work. So I think what we would maybe look at doing is, at the board meeting before, looking at that fourth week, if you will, and then trying to pick out a date that works for everybody. And frankly, not everybody's gonna be able to make every meeting. There'll be somewhere I'll be gone too. But with having a separate meeting, we start our regular board meetings at 7 o'clock. Well, tonight is a pretty short agenda. Generally, we're gonna be running into that 8:30 time frame, and in my opinion, we just tend to run out of time to have some meaningful dialogue on some topics that we should really have some more conversations about as a board. And the other thing that Brent is probably gonna get to here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, you know, the second kind of section there is just my evaluation process and feedback for me. You know, I'd like to do that 2 times a year. You know, a year ago, we did it quarterly. I think we're at a point now where we can do it a couple times a year. And so kind of a mid-year feedback, end-of-year evaluation timeline that would maybe just tack on at the end of a regular board meeting agenda, and we'd go into closed session, and then we'd come out and adjourn the meeting. And so that's kind of the middle. And then ultimately what we want to get back to is, you know, teachers and students presenting each board meeting, at each regular board meeting, about a program, about a learning experience that maybe just concluded, and give you guys just kind of a flavor for what's happening within the building. You know, in the COVID reality and COVID situation we're in right now, second semester, I've asked the principals to start submitting some more written reports for you guys that focuses more on programs, learning experiences, and events. It'll be written, you guys can look at it ahead of the meeting, and then they'll provide a brief summary or brief overview, not, you know, 15 minutes for each report, just the high level kind of 10,000 foot view. But then, you know, that might stimulate some further dialogue that you might want at a future meeting to hear a little bit more about from a particular teacher or a group of teachers about that particular program or learning experience for kids.
Sounds good.
Okay? And so, kind of just be thinking about that as I put on paper here. But when we get together in January, we'll look at and say, either end of January or maybe in the end of February for us to have that first work session on a separate night to look at some financial projections and the impact on programs and staff.
Is the separate night just because of just time, you just wanna be able to spend more time on it? I kinda like just, when I'm here, just tackling it, but when there's a big agenda, then I know that doesn't make sense, but.
Yeah, I think I'm open to whatever the board feels is most appropriate. It's just a conversation that Andy and I had about doing it on its own separate evening so we could focus in on that one district goal. And allow us to have some visitors in to have that conversation and to kind of join in on that instead of them maybe sitting through
Yeah, if
a 60-minute meeting or trying to guess, is this gonna be a little bit longer and are they gonna stick around or? Otherwise, the other option is to do the work session before the regular meeting and start, that at like 5:30 on the same night as a regular meeting. And I know Mondays are difficult, especially for those of us that have kids that are active in fine arts and sports and stuff, That's why I think if it is on a separate night, we just need to be flexible and have a conversation at the board table about when that might be within the next couple weeks.
And we certainly can, look at nights like tonight when we have a really short agenda and we can just plop a work session at the back of it. So I think the intent there is just not really to be rigid in any of it, but to be flexible, and there'll certainly be probably some ad hoc work sessions where a certain topic would come up from time to time that we just need to think about and hammer out.
Yeah, I don't think this has to be cast in stone by any means in terms of the topics and of those months. If something comes up, like Andy, I think alluded to, is, let's tackle that topic as it comes up, and if it's timely to do it, then we do it. And if it would be pretty easy to spend a couple hours talking about any of these topics, I think, and to add that onto the back end of a hour to an hour and a half board meeting can get very late, and so, or if we started earlier, that would make it easier as well, so.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of giving a shot on a different night. We've gone through since March, flexibility is the chief around here, so I won't give it, I don't mind giving it a shot. I can't guarantee it'll work all the time, but I think we can all kind of figure it out. I don't have a problem staying a little bit later too, so see how it goes.
Good topics, though, it's good to discuss these further.
Yeah, I think it grounds us in the goals that the board has set for the district. And allows us to have a valuable conversation around those goals and kind of just make sure we're making progress towards them.
Anything else?
That's all I got.
Jackie, we skipped right over you. Do you have anything?
Absolutely nothing.
Board members? The only thing I have is what I reached out to you about over the past couple of weeks about the big project for the foundation that Scott's probably well aware of with his years of being the liaison of the foundation. But in short, looking at roughly a budget of $10,000 for next year's project and trying to identify that by the end of January so we can kind of get the wheels in motion on the foundation side. Do you have an update on this year's project with the AV and the auditorium?
So over Christmas break, the plan is to install the screens. All
Okay.
the wiring and cabling and everything's ready to go. It's just a matter of getting in there and mounting the screens and having that installed.
Okay.
So,
Perfect. Anything else? Okay, item 6, old business, nothing there. So roll into item 7, new business. Mr. Jorth?
yeah, so again, policy review and revisions for the 600 series. Again, as you look through the packet there, the first three items are really no language changes. And then the four items that are listed in number 2 have some kind of updates from ISB. Nothing that necessarily changes the intent of any of the 600 series policies. One thing Amanda discovered during her review of this is that really we've got 2 600 series. We've got one that's option 1 and option 2, and at 2017, I think, when it was adopted, both of those options were adopted, when in reality, you just need one. And option 1's a little bit more detailed and has more language in there. And option 2, that's also listed, was pretty redundant, and didn't have all the language that option 1 did. So that's why, number 3 there is consider rescinding option 2 of policy 600, because it's really a duplication.
Any questions on those?
Would you like us to take all 3 of those
I
together?
think you can, and if you would like to waive the second reading, like I said, I don't think there's any real changes to the intent of the policies.
No questions, I'd entertain a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to approve all 3 of those and waive the second reading.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the policies as listed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item B.
So item B is a revision to the early retirement policy for teachers. In the past, it's had 3 criteria for teachers to receive the $30,000 incentive. My recommendation is to remove the rule of 88 requirement, but maintain the age of, a minimum age of 55 and 10 years of service, continuous service to the district. And again, maintaining the same incentive, the same dollar amount available. Presently, we currently have in this year 5 staff members that do hit that rule of 88. Yet at this point, no one from that group of 5 has, come forward to indicate that they're planning on taking that. If we were to expand that, we would potentially, there's 5 additional staff members that either have passed that rule of 88 or are just shy of the rule of 88. And then they would have the choice of what they wanted to do when it came to, employment elsewhere or a non-IPERS position outside the district. But, the impetus here is, again, trying to capture some general fund savings through turnover. All 10 of these staff members have salary and total compensation packages in the $80,000 range. Again, we don't want to lose good teachers, but when we have got declining enrollment, we're looking down the barrel of, low supplemental state aid. The general fund dollars are really, really tight. And so we took some steps last year to try to save some general fund dollars, and I think we're gonna realize some of those, but we're gonna need to continue to look for those opportunities, and this is one way to capture some of those general fund savings.
Brent, you listed in your memo, you're estimating 2 to 5 staff members would
Yep.
take it. Is that based on conversations with them or based on pulling a number out of the air or something else?
Yeah, conversations and conversations with others. And again, ultimately, if the policy's changed, it's one thing to have a conversation, but it's another thing to kind of actually follow through and make that decision to retire. So I understand that that's a decision that you might have said one thing at one time to us, but ultimately when presented that option, it might be different. So that's why I kind of estimate the 2 to 5.
Is your intent, we talked this earlier this afternoon, your intent is to have this be effective only through this year?
Yep.
So at this point, we would go back to the existing policy
Mhm.
after this year.
Yep, similar to what we did for support staff last year. Kind of, you try to capture that and you try to appeal to those that this would apply to. But the intent is not to turn it into something that just becomes, you know, an exit expectation for staff.
Right.
And so, again, you know, if, depending upon how many staff members take it, what enrollment does a year from now, you know, we might have to revisit this policy again and see if it's in the district's best interest to, again, try to incentivize some others if we need to realize those general fund savings. But, yeah, my intent would be in the date for application is that first week in January. So we would know who's applied and who hasn't applied, and February or March, we could rescind it. And then either reinstitute the rule of 88, so you only get it essentially in that year that you hit that magic number between years of service and your age, or we can, you know, just do away with it and come up with a new policy or a new plan for next year and reinstitute something after the first of the new fiscal year.
Is that enough time, January 6th? I mean, when we enacted the policy that makes it through the table tonight till, it's not like 3 weeks, it seems like, or 4, but I don't know, maybe that's enough time to decide. Yes?
I think it is. I think
Okay.
those people that are eligible and interested have been discussing it for some time.
Okay. That's fine by me,
I could be wrong,
I just wanna
but-
make sure that there's enough time for people to make that decision, if it's a fairly major decision, I guess I would say, I don't know.
The employees who no longer qualify because of Rule 88, it's on their mind. And the employees that do qualify because it's the year of Rule 88, it's obviously on their mind. So I do think it's enough time.
It's certainly a two-way street where, yeah, we get some cost savings there, but as you alluded to, we have the potential to lose some really good veteran staff members. What, and one of the concerns is about teacher shortages.
Yep.
Any potential positions that may come in, thoughts on ability to refill those?
Yeah, I think as we look at the pool of 10 individuals, they historically don't fall into those hard-to-fill positions, you know. They're more generalized classroom teachers rather than maybe like a industrial tech or FFA instructor or Spanish teacher, where there's just so few of those teachers, as opposed to, you know, a social studies teacher or a, you know, elementary classroom teacher where there's traditionally multiple candidates for those positions and have been or were a year ago when we advertised for those positions. Now, I say that now and these could all turn into hard to fill positions in the spring, but another reason to do it early, Joel, so that then again we can, if we do receive those in that first meeting in January, those resignations, we can turn around and begin to try to fill those positions.
So is there a way, the way this is written now, this would go into place and replace the existing policy? Is that what we want to do, or can we make like an amendment to the existing policy and say, okay, effective for this year only is going to be this practice, we'll replace this section or something like that? And the only reason I say that is because I don't want us to forget about it, or somebody thinks, oh, now all of a sudden this is your policy going forward until you change it.
Yep, and that's where it'd be my recommendation to either just adopt the previous policy back into effect in February, after our, deadline has passed and we've seen who's taken it, and if the board would wanna extend the deadline to give people more time to think about it, they would have that option. That way, we're not losing any of the criteria. But I think if we add an amendment to it, it just kind of muddies the water, where we've kept the policy that we've had previously, we're not gonna lose it or, lose the history of what we've had previously.
Okay.
Any more discussion on that one? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the policy 415 as revised.
Second. A motion and a second to approve the policy 415 as revised. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Personnel hiring, item C.
Yes, we have a few long-term sub requests coming toward the end of the school year. Listed, we try to find those as soon as we can to make sure we have individuals that have a background, have done those before, so that the time the person will be gone is covered adequately in the classroom. And these are the four we have for the remainder of the school year. You see, they all start in the spring.
Any questions on those? If not, we can take A, B, C, and D all as one motion.
Is the counseling position to substitute for our, used to be, I think, kindergarten teacher who is now?
Kate Gerber. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, remind me what the criteria is for needing a long-term sub versus somebody just, what's the threshold when you cross this number of days, it has to be a long-term sub versus just a day-to-day?
So long-term subs, based on policy, is beyond the 10th consecutive day in the same position.
Okay.
Yep.
And there's
So-
different pay that goes along with that too,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
It is increased slightly.
Goes to more of a per diem based upon your experience, and instead of just a flat.
$110 a day or whatever.
Yep.
numbers.
Makes it somewhat more worthwhile for showing up every day, but.
And having that consistency instead of trying to, do a part-time position.
Do they actually get a contract? No, just an agreement. Okay.
We can't really hold them to anything.
Right, yeah, we're just,
And it's,
okay.
if they need a sick day, we're not necessarily paying them for their sick day. They're unpaid in that position if they've got an appointment or something should come up.
Make a motion to approve them.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to approve the hirings as listed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Announcements, dates to remember.
Big one is tomorrow night, we are having our first, third, and fifth grade concerts. So rehearsal's been going on on Friday and today, and they'll brush it up one more time tomorrow, so we look forward to those. Again, we'll follow the 2 spectators per member of each class for those concerts, much like we had the high school concert a week ago. Sharing committee will meet this Wednesday with our GLR members, and then winter break starts on the 23rd. So I would remind families that Monday the 4th is a no school day, and classes will resume on Tuesday the 5th.
It's a teacher work day, isn't it?
Teacher work day. Yep. And then our next meeting is scheduled for the 11th. It's the second Monday of January.
And afterwards, it's our intent to try and slip in the superintendent feedback work session, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Okay, if not anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So, motion and second to adjourn, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.
All right. You want to sign, we'll let you guys sign the bills. And then that way I can take the minutes for the work session and Jackie can enjoy her Monday evening. And then we're going in probably about, what, 5-10 minutes at the most is what it usually takes us, Jackie?
Yeah, shouldn't be long.